Today, I'm going to show you how you can use AI to create a complete brand for your business or online presence. Now, this is useful for things like social media, an online business, or even for an actual brick and mortar business, whether you're a complete beginner or a graphic designer. And I'm going to create a business called True Talk. So we're going to work on a mechanical business, create a logo, a complete brand, and I'll show you the process that I've used to get to this point. Now, before we start, I want to mention that Kittl is sponsoring this video, and there's a link and a discount code in the description if you would like to check them out. First thing we have to do is actually do a little bit of research about our brand to make sure we're going to create something that is relevant and going to capture the attention of our target audience. One of the things we can do is go onto Google, research other logos, and get a bit of an idea or a feel for that. However, if we want to lean a little bit more on AI and speed things up, we can actually go to ChatGPT. Now, I'm going to ask, what do people look for in a quality mechanic for their car, so I can understand the type of quality or value people look for when they're searching for a mechanic. But keep in mind, ChatGPT is great for idea generation, but if you're looking for things like facts and statistics, you may need to actually double check to make sure what it's giving you is accurate. Now, essentially, it says here that we want to be trustworthy and have experience, be certified, great communication, fair pricing, and it's given us a few values to follow. So we can actually just use that information for our next prompt. So I then asked ChatGPT to come up with some business names that represent those values. Now, it returns some names for each value. And as you can see, the very first one, which is trust-focused names, is True Talk Automotive. And we've got some other great names here also. Now, I did go through and actually check out the rest of the names based on the differing values, and there were some decent ones in there, but True Talk Automotive really stuck with me, so I decided to run with that. So I then asked for some logo suggestions, color, and branding ideas for True Talk Automotive that also matched the values it described above. It came up with some solid ideas such as tagline, precision you can trust, and of course some colors to try, including the hex codes, which was pretty handy, along with an idea of what each color basically means. Now, already that's given us a pretty strong start, having some colors and ideas to start off with, but on top of that, it also went ahead and gave me some actual logo ideas using certain elements, and even the typography, the fonts I might want to use when creating this logo in order to best represent the industry and the people I'm trying to target. So I then decided to head into Kittl and start laying out the text into a new project. I'm going to use the name and the tagline that we got from ChatGPT and just kind of put it on the page so we can start getting things together and nail down some of our typography so that when we start creating some of the other elements, we can see how well it all matches up. Now, I also want to mention that if you're looking for a more detailed process of this, we're going to cover things a little quickly here. I actually have a full video on creating the logo itself, so I'm going to pop a link to that in the description below, but also a card at the end of this video so you can check that out. I'm also just going to create some very simple boxes on the page here and pop the colors from ChatGPT in there by copying and pasting the hex code so I have them there as reference. So now we have the text on the page and also the colors there for reference. So what I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to start duplicating these down the page. And then I'm going to go through and look up what fonts ChatGPT has recommended and start implementing them into a couple of different variations so I can take a look and compare to see which one I think looks best. So for our primary heading, we have Oswald, DIN Condensed, and Typography Web. But secondary font, we have Lato and Open Sans. So we need to try out and compare these fonts. So heading back to Kittl, we just need to simply select our text, come down to text style and find that font. And luckily, Kittl seems to have the ones we're looking for. Under text style, we can also adjust things like the weight of the font and play around with a few settings to find what we think is going to work best with the font we've chosen. So now I repeat that process. I have my 3 different names, I add in the 3 different headings, and I take the other 2 bits of text on there and I add the secondary fonts in just to see what kind of results we get, and I can take a look to compare what we've got. So we have our list of fonts here, and now we have a few variations to compare. And if we go from the top down, you'll see that the top font starts with Oswald. We've then added DIN Condensed, and finally Typography Web as the headings. Now, I did put Open Sans as the secondary font up the top. However, I just didn't like it for this particular logo at all. And when I switched to Lato on the second one, I just simply made the choice that that was what I was going to use as a secondary font. Now, you can actually go through and check out other fonts that you think are similar that might be more suitable, and just take your time to scroll through and pick something you like, or you can stick with one of the ones that ChatGPT actually recommended. I like the third font, Typography Web. It's got a nice bold look to it, so we're going to run with that for the rest of this tutorial. But I also want to add a little bit of personality to this, so I'm going to actually click on this font grab a rectangle and just draw it over the top of the T here. So we have a little option there, and click on that, hold down Shift to click on the font, and I'm going to use Union to turn that into a vector object. So now when I click on this, I can double click, zoom in, and even grab some of these points. Now I want this to be consistent, so instead of just dragging this with my mouse, I'm use Control Z to undo. I'm going to click and hold Shift and arrow to see Shift and arrow across once, and then Shift and arrow across once again, and then I'll come to the Q, Shift and arrow down, just to make a small minor modification. So we have like a bit of just a little bit of personality in that text. Now taking a step back, that looks a little bit extreme with those angles, so I can go back in and just make some slight adjustments to bring them back, make them a little bit more subtle, or maybe even go to the other side of the T and just kind of move those points back across. So now we have a logo that's just a little bit more unique than just simply typing out the text, and just adds a little bit more personality to it. And there's a whole bunch of really cool vector editing tools that make this possible. Again, there is another video which I'll link to in the description below, and also at the end of this video in a video card. Now at the moment I've just centered everything. However, we could also try moving the automotive just here and seeing what we think. I think that doesn't look too bad, but it just looks a little bit unbalanced. I could make it even smaller, though that's a little too small. But I like the idea of playing with the layout to see just what we can create and what kind of vibe we can get with the layout of these objects. But now finally we can work on creating an emblem to go with the text, and we're going to use AI to help us create it. Looking back at ChatGPT, it's given us a few concepts that we can try. So I'm just going to copy this, come over to Kittl AI, go to image generator, and I'm going to stick with DALL-E 3 for our first try, and come down to our vector styles here and click show all. You'll see here there is an emblem model we can try. So I'll try that one first, come up and paste in our ChatGPT information. Now there's two things here I want to quickly stop and mention. Is we chose a vector image style because it's going to create a logo that is in black and white. And what we really want is a logo or an emblem that can work in black and white if it's going to be a successful logo, and we can add color to it later. And also with a vector, it's infinitely scalable, so you don't have to worry about losing quality when you blow it up to large sizes. But also, we can't just use the information we copied from ChatGPT. We need to edit it down a little bit, so that way Kittl gets a better result with the information we give it when generating our emblem. So I'm going to remove some of this information. A bold, clean torque wrench icon forming a circular or hex shape. We could probably leave that in. The wrench can subtly form a T. I'm going to get rid of true torque. So we've kind of taken some of the ChatGPT information, but you can also apply your own imagination here to get some ideas as well. This is just a way of kind of trying to make it easier for people who don't have the experience in logo design. So I have my prompt. I do want it to be 1:1 because I want it to be a relatively even ratio for the size of the emblem. I'm going to come down and click Generate Image. Now you can see our first emblem has been created. I don't know if that's necessarily a good emblem for us to go with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this option to the side over here, and I'm going to go back in and generate again and generate a few of these to choose from. Now getting a good result can take a little bit of time. You may need to generate again a couple of times to see what options you get. You may need to adjust your prompt or even try a different model if you're not quite getting something you think aligns with what you're after. I'm not really getting the results I'm after here, but that's a part of generating with AI. You do roll the dice a little bit. Now before I go ahead and change the prompt, I can come back in, go back, and even just try different vector styles to see which one's going to turn out to be the best, or even change to a different generator altogether. Now this becomes a little bit of a process of generating, refining, and just simply collecting a few different options for you to choose from. Now as you go, I like to sort of pause, go through and sort of delete any logos I don't think are going to work, so that way I can focus on the ones I think look the best. But also, once I'm done with that first option, I'm going to go back into ChatGPT, check out some of my other options here, and I'm going to start generating those as well, because it's good to go through all the options we had in ChatGPT and just see what we can create, and then once we're done with everything, we can look at the best and pick what we think is going to work the best for our logo. Now, out of our 3 different logo variations, the shield, none of that looked good, so I removed all of them. And we have these, which is a combination of the torque wrench and the T-shaped logo. So this is what we have, and I'm going to go through and just delete some of the ones I don't like. And these are our final options. Now, looking at these 4 logos, there may be some here that people would like to use. There's some that really catch people's attention. Now, if you find that you get a logo out of the generator that you're happy to use straight away, then that is awesome. You can also make some adjustments to it. But what I see here is also another step we can take if we're still not quite getting what we want. We could take one of these and use it, or we can go through and use some of the elements and sort of get some inspiration to design another logo by chopping up bits and pieces of it and going from there. So this time I just tried to generate the actual items. I generated just an actual wrench, got another cool little graphic here. I experimented with the shape builder to join some elements together or even subtract some elements from others. I also edited some of them in order to bring them and convert them into simpler elements. And then I tried just sort of cutting things out, adding things in, and just moving some of the elements around just to see if I can make something work with what I had on screen. And once I got close, I decided to add some color, and I came up with this logo here. And I just moved a few things around, and eventually I added it above the actual text just to see how it looked. So I managed to come up with my first logo variation and added a little bit of color to the emblem. Now I do want to stress, you don't have to go this far. I've combined elements that were generated with AI into a logo, but like I said before, you can simply choose one of the generations and use it as well. So it's funny, I went through this whole process, but something just kept grabbing my attention while I was doing it. And that was this sort of wrench cross logo that was generated with AI. So for one final comparison, I decided to add the cog in with the cross wrench logo. I even added a certain color behind it and then chopped it in half and tried to create something slightly unique for the color version of the logo. Then I put them both on their own artboards, laid them out with the text, and put them both side by side. And now after creating all these generations and all these logos, I now have two final versions I can choose from. And like I said, you don't have to be as picky or as fussy as I was. I'm just trying to cover all the bases with this video so you know what steps you can take. But essentially, I've got to choose between left and right. I kick back, look at the two of them, and to be honest, I think the right stands out. It looks more like an emblem, more like something you can just stamp onto something. So I'm going to run with that for our logo because I feel like that is a great way to start off our brand. And now I'm just going to go through and add in the colors that ChatGPT recommended. However, I'm going to leave out the crimson red because I think the gray and the blue look great on their own. And now this is our final logo, and we're going to start using that to expand upon our brand. Now, we've spent a lot of time on the logo itself, but this is the cornerstone of a visual brand because it allows you to get things like the fonts, the colors, the look and feel, and then of course the logo itself to put onto all of your branding in order to get your message out there. Now, the next step, if we actually want to start using this logo to extend on our brand, is for one, we need to actually export some files that we can use and also supply to other professional printers or even signwriters. But before we do that, we're going to make things a bit easier by looking at brand kits. So now we've landed on this logo. What I want to do in order to make things a bit easier is come over to brand kits. I'm going to come over here. I've got two, one from a previous logo video, which I've mentioned earlier, and also my Creator Impact brand kit. I can come down here, add a new one. I give it a name, put True Talk, hit create. And I've got some options here, and I can go in and where it says say textiles, I click new textile. I can say heading and choose our titanium web, the black, nice heavy font. And I'm going to just put the font size at about 65 or maybe even 40 because sometimes it can come in a bit big. And I'm going to add the style to the brand kit. I then do the same process for our secondary font. But the difference is, earlier in the video I did say Lato, but I decided to go through and I found a different one. It just wasn't quite sitting right with me, and I've decided to stick with Proxima Nova as my secondary font. So just remember, it's never too late to go back and make little changes as you're going along. So I have the two fonts saved here. Now color styles, again, I go to new style, I click on the color here, and I can actually just use the dropper, highlight my blue, give it a name, I'll just say blue, add to brand kit. And then do the same for the gray and the black. So you may get the idea from that. The brand kit allows you to store fonts, colors, and other properties that align with your brand. So whenever you open up other documents, you can just refer to that and apply those to what it is you're designing. So I've got my text styles, I've got my color styles, and I could also go in and add things like shadow styles if I have shadows I've been using, text shading styles if I use some text shading, or text decoration, photo filters. I may even come back to photo filters depending on how far we go. But essentially, we have our colors and fonts in the brand kit for reference, which is going to be really, really handy. Now, I mentioned earlier we're going to start exporting files for use. Now, I go a bit more in depth on this in the logo design video, but essentially we're going to duplicate our artboards. I'm going to give them names to describe them, and we're going to change the color of the background and the logo so that it has a high contrast against that background. And that way we have a logo for use in each different sort of background color it has to go onto. But on top of that, we're also going to separate the emblem and the text itself and create different variations of the actual logo, single color, different colored backgrounds, so we have all the options we need to export. So the final result here, and I'll touch a little bit on how to do this in a sec, but we have our original logos with a few different color variations and a single color version. We have a landscape version, we have the text on its own and the emblem on its own. So we have lots of different options with our logo. Now, if you're wanting to know how to duplicate these, simply select the actual artboard and hit this duplicate button, and then you just go through, and when you select the artboard itself, you can change the background color and then select each object and change the color one by one. In order to rename it, simply double click and you can start typing what you want into that name there. So once you rinse and repeat that process, you can create all these various different copies of your logo. And the reason I usually duplicate it is because once I create one variation, I can then just simply duplicate it and change the colors. So it makes it pretty straightforward, but also consistent. So now that we've created all these variations, we can actually finally download them. And there's a few different options such as PNG, JPEG, PDF, or SVG. Now this looks like a lot. I've got our square logos, I've got some rectangle versions of the logo, I've got just the emblem itself and just the text on its own without the precision you can trust. So it's pretty straightforward. Now, it doesn't take long to do this, but it's worth doing it just so you can grab what you need as you need it. But I'm gonna come up the top here to the download button, and I want to export all of the artboards. I'm going to export as PNG, but I'm going to remove the background so that we can create some transparent PNGs. I'm going to bring this up to 300 DPI. So that way we have like a print quality sort of export. And I'm going to do this with the PNG quickly, saving the zip file here. I'm going to do the same with a PDF. But I do not want to combine the artboards in one file. I want to keep them separate so I can supply them to commercial print shops and things like that. So I download that. It's a good idea to name these, the file format, and whether you have the background removed. I put transparent when I remove the background. I do a PDF again, but this time I untick remove background because I may want to include the background in these ones. And finally, I'm going to choose JPEG and leave the background on as well. Now, I've actually got a spelling mistake in the name of the zip file I downloaded because that's in the document itself, so just be aware of that. But otherwise, if I go ahead and extract all these into their individual folders, I can now go in, I have some JPEGs here of every combination, and it's all named automatically True Talk Automotive square logo on black. And if I go up to PNG, or you'll notice they all have transparent backgrounds. So if I'm using them on a photo or something, I can choose which background is closest to the color or sort of darkness of the photo. So I have all of these available for me to use and supply to commercial printeries or even graphic designers if I need to when they're working on material for my brand. But just remember, if you need a vector format of file to supply to someone, you need to choose SVG or PDF, as PNG and JPEG are bitmap files and don't scale as effectively as the vector file formats. So now I'm going to start creating merchandise for our brand. It could be anything from business cards to flyers to objects, things that we can print on, or even things like uniforms for the people who work for the business. I'm going to show you exactly how you can do that by creating mock-ups right within Kittl. So before I actually get into this, I'm going to right click and open the logo file in a new tab, and then I'm going to create a new project. Now I think a blue shirt would match pretty well. And if I go to my artboard here, this is where the brand kits comes in handy. Is I can come down to the color of the artboard and I could try and fix it here, or I could click on the 4 dots and I have my True Talk brand kit here. I can click on blue and now I have the background. If I tab over to the project we opened in the new tab, I can find the right logo to use. Maybe I decide I'm going to grab this one here. I go right click, copy, I tab back, I then right click and paste, and it may take a moment to paste in. The other thing you can do is actually, when you're exporting, that we did earlier, you can export SVG files and upload those, or even upload transparent PNG. So let's say we're working on a shirt, and maybe this is going on the back of the shirt. So I'll click on this, duplicate, and maybe I want to create like a little pocket logo for the front of the shirt. So we may need to, for just this one time, change some of the layout so that things stand out. So I'll make this a bit larger. I'll get rid of the catchphrase for now, and maybe we make automotive a bit bigger. So I'll grab these corner handles, drag them out here. So this can be the front pocket area of the shirt, and we can have this on the back. So now you'll see there's a little item down here that says mockup. If I click on that, I'm going to choose this first one here, create mockup. You see we already have a shirt here, but maybe I type in polo. And if we're using premium, we have access to this image. And you notice that it already colors the shirt. And if I move this around, it sort of conforms with the waves of the shirt. So I can pop this in position and download an image for the front of the uniform. Once I'm done, I can click back to editor, then follow the same process, choosing the second artboard. Again, I search for polo. I can choose the back and then position this on the shirt so you have a nice professional back of the shirt as well, and I can download that. And now we have some professional, high-resolution images of our man wearing a uniform with our logo and brand applied to it. And you see here we have True Talk Automotive and the uniform, but it doesn't just have to be the uniform that we're using. I can also create a full design or even go over to templates. I can go to merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, but either way I can search for car, and I can find something I think will suit some merchandise to sell as well as just my general mechanic service. So I actually don't mind this one right here. My other car is also fast. However, it doesn't really match our brand. I click on it and it's a very cool design. However, if I want to change the background here, I want to maybe match it to our light alternative gray, which means also this outline here under the shading, I will also match that as well. Now, we want to stick to our brand colors and we want to include our logo somewhere. The first thing I'm going to do is I have some text here. I'm going to hold down Shift to select both of them. And if I go to my brand kit, I can choose heading here, but it actually changes the size as well. So if I click on this, it actually changes the size of the text. So I'm going to undo. Also, I need to select this text, I've noticed. And I know that the font, if I go to my style here, is Typography Web. So I can just simply click off, come down, and where it says Fraternity Sands, find Typography Web, even search for it up here. Find the right weight, which is black. And we've matched it to our brand. Now I can make some minor adjustments, bringing some of the text closer together, even adjusting the height. So at the moment, there's a bit of a gap here. I want to make that, instead of -14, I'll make it -24, so it's a bit closer, and click off. Now what's really cool is, if I want to adjust more colors at once, where this pink is here, if I just click on this, I don't have the document colors here. So what I can do is, again, I have my color styles here. I'm going to click on this and grab the blue. And that means I can now click off, simply select the pink, and then choose from document colors down here, the blue. And it has changed everything to the colors that we want. Now I'm going to just select everything, drag it up a little bit. I tab back to our logo file, which is still open in another tab. And notice how I've made the shirt light gray. However, none of these are that light gray color. Well, I can actually just simply go for the white, which is actually quite close to that. Select this, right click, copy, then right click and paste. And then I can shrink this down and reposition it so that it fits on this shirt design. And that is how easy it is to change around some fonts and colors, and using the brand kits, just reference the different fonts and colors that you have. So that way it all is in alignment with everything that you've created in your logo, and the brand extends on from there pretty successfully. Now, I can also remove this car completely, go into my images and search for a photo of a sports car. Find one I think will be suitable, like this one here. The simpler the background, the better, because what we need to do is click on this photo, hit remove background, and we can remove the background and place a photo of a car if we want to. Now, this being in color, I think doesn't suit the design as well. So I'm going to come down here to photo filter, click add. And all I'm going to do is bring the saturation down and maybe even bring the contrast up a bit so that stands out. And I can adjust any of these levels. I could even bring the saturation up and move the hue around if I want to alter the color, change the vibrance. There are so many different things you can do with this filter. But for now, we're just going to bring the saturation down, contrast up a little bit. The brightness is also up slightly, and that looks pretty good. But what's really cool is, if I come up top here to my 4 dots, I can add a photo filter style and add it to the True Talk Brand Kit. So now, if I put here unsaturate and add that style to the brand kit, what I can essentially do is, if I search for another image of a car, like this one here, I could pop it on there, remove the background, and then I simply go to my brand kits, scroll down to the unsaturate photo filter, click that, and it will automatically add that setting. So if you have very particular settings that you want with your brand, this is a great way to do that also. But for now, I'm pretty happy with my design. So what I can do is create a mock-up as we did before, using that exact same process, and we can get a number of different images and apply it to that to try and market the shirt to sell. Now, the cool thing about the mock-up system is you can actually just go straight into your logo file. You don't even have to create a design. If you just want your logo on something, open up the logo file and you can just use the mock-up system from there. So I simply open up my logo file and head over to mock-up. Maybe I decide I want to go with something with a white background, create mock-up, and literally repeat the exact same process, but choose whatever logo variation we have on our file. And you can try a whole bunch of different types of images and try different ideas. This is great for graphic designers who need mock-ups when designing logos. And all these same methods, including using the templates, extends to things such as business cards or even flyers. Anything that you think you need to market with, you can actually usually find a design on Kittl that you can manipulate and apply your brand to, using everything I basically shared with you today. So that should give you an idea of just how powerful Kittl is when it comes to creating not only a logo, but a full brand, mock-ups, and everything you need either for your own business or for clients as a graphic designer, all assisted with AI to really speed up the process. Everything you see here today, I basically pumped out in a few hours. I recorded the whole thing. Within a few hours, everything was produced. Because of AI and the fact that it has the automatic mock-up system, makes everything so easy and just really, really powerful. So check out Kittl today. They're the sponsor of this video. I want to thank them for sponsoring the video. They offer an awesome graphic design service backed by AI. Highly recommended, even if they weren't sponsoring me. So I want to say thank you for watching the video, guys. That is the video for today, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.